Access and choice, no matter where in the world you may be watching from, these two principles are at the heart of every regulatory battle over vaping. In just the past few weeks, developments in Canada indicate a major shift in that struggle as the federal government announced plans to introduce this fall the country's first ever federal vaping regulations. Historically, Canada has set the trend in the tobacco control movement, and now its approach to vaping could light a path for the rest of the world to follow. By all indications, the new regulations may be friendly and could secure access to vaping product and choice for Canadian vapers. In late September, the Canadian federal government announced it would address the growing phenomenon of e-cigarettes with new legislation that would strike a balance between protecting youth from nicotine addiction and tobacco use, with that of allowing adult smokers to legally access vaping products. The government plans to achieve this by amending the Tobacco Act in order to create a new legislative framework, which would allow vaping products to be used for smoking cessation or as a potentially less harmful alternative to smoking. It's this last point that has many vaping advocates hopeful, as it appears the Justin Trudeau-led Liberal government is heeding at least some of the recommendations in the HESA report, Vaping Towards a Regulatory Framework for E-Cigarettes, produced by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health. As RegWatch reported last June, vaping activists want government to create a new product category for vapor products exclusive to harm reduction.
Our whole public health system is built on the basis of harm reduction. Separating this and going into a tobacco harm reduction, not cessation products, which is in the medicinal sense, but going into a tobacco harm reduction product, that's where we need to go.
Joining us today to talk about what we know so far in regards to the new federal regulations and what they could possibly mean for Canadian vapers is Sam Tam, Communications Chair at the Canadian Vaping Association. Sam, thanks for coming on the show. Please tell our viewers about the CVA and what it is you do.
The Canadian Vaping Association advocates for the vaping industry in Canada. We represent more than 200 members from the vaping industry, from manufacturers to distributors to vendors and shops. Our goal is to lobby the governments with our efforts to ensure that the government makes sensible regulation for vaping products in Canada.
Sam, what's the number one goal the CVA is trying to achieve?
The number one goal the CVA is looking for, of course, is to legitimize the industry and to work with the government to ensure that access and choice is there for people that are looking to switch from smoking to vaping. And that is our mandate, is to be able to work with all different levels of government and to ensure that the rights of not only vapers but potential smokers, that they will have legal access to this product across the country.
Sam, as we know, the Trudeau government has announced it plans to drop what would be the first ever federal vaping regulations this fall. Is this a positive sign?
It is. It is a positive sign. We know regulation at the federal level was coming. It was just a matter of time. They acknowledge that e-cigarette is less harmful than cigarette smoking and can be seen as a useful tool to getting smokers to switch from smoking.
Sam, what's the most important issue the government needs to first address in order to make regulation work for the industry?
The government, first thing what they need to do is to reclassify nicotine in e-cigarettes and e-liquid as a harm reduction product. By doing that, they will legally allow access to vaping products across the country. So this is something that is really important, that I would say is the very first step that the government will need to look at.
So unless nicotine is made legal, everything else is moot.
That's right.
Sam, while the government says it plans to create a new legislative framework, as was recommended in the HESA report, is there some concern then that the implementation would come via amendments to the Tobacco Act?
We're really looking at sensible regulation coming on the federal side. We understand that protecting youth is a mandate on the government side. We agree that, there are certain aspects that we need to look at to protect youths, and this would include things like packaging, warning labels and signs in packaging, and branding as well. And I think these are the most important components that that we could adopt from the Tobacco Act.
Sam, Canada is well known for taking a lead role in banning tobacco advertising, and in many jurisdictions we've seen vaping suffer the same fate.
Well, advertising ban it would be a major problem. I think what's really important here is we have to acknowledge that vaping is less harmful. People need to have access to information. People need to know the positive side of vaping that is much safer than smoking. And if we do an advertising ban on vaping products, people are not going to have access of information. They're not going to know that vaping product is much safer. I think what the government really needs to look at is there should be some restrictions on advertisement. There's no reason why advertisements need to be created to target youth. We look at England, for example. Advertisements is being put up by Public Health England. You could travel the streets of England and you would see advertisement. And the government there is promoting e-cigarettes, and telling people that this product can be accessed. Consult your physicians. I think Canada, could really become a leader. Don't look at it as being, it's not a tobacco product. We all know that. What we need to do is endorse a product that is helping millions of people worldwide. And an advertising ban would affect that.
Sam, I know there's still a lot of unknowns and issues which can't be properly discussed until the regulations drop. In the meantime, does the CVA have a message you want to get out?
Brett, it's really important that viewers, vapers, our members, and of course public health and government to know that CVA will do whatever it takes to ensure the federal government provides sensible regulation so all adult smokers can have access to vaping product as a harm reduction product. We are not going to back down on choices either, including flavors. Without choice and flavors in e-cigarette, it would be a failure. Flavors is what provides an advantage in securing smokers to switch.
Sam, switching from smoking to vaping is being characterized as life-saving. As Public Health England states, it's 95% less harmful than smoking. Right now, can members of the Canadian Vaping Association tell its customers that vaping could save lives?
Unfortunately, no.
So come later this year then, with the new vaping regulations, is it the hope that you could finally give smokers this message?
Definitely. I mean, with more than 4.2 million smokers in Canada, and their lives are obviously being affected from smoking, if a less harmful product is being acknowledged by the government, that they can have legal access to this product, we're hoping one day we will be able to tell people that vaping saves lives.
Well, that's it for this edition of RegWatch. Before you head off, please like us on Facebook and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. For RegulatorWatch.com, I'm Brent Stafford.